Autistic and black, late diagnosed autistic black man, which is me, Crow. In this video, I'm going to share with you my 34-year journey to finding out that I have autism spectrum disorder. During the pandemic, I took a leap of faith, and at the time I was working in a sober house, and I was managing a sober house full of 14 grown men, which maybe is a later story. But during this time period, I decided I'm gonna go full force with running my business. Now, I am a spiritual mentor and a guide, and I work with others one-on-one, teaching them Reiki, yoga, and a technique called theta healing. But that isn't for this video. Just giving you some context. So it was during this time that I gained a lot more clients, and I noticed a pattern. A lot of these clients that I was working with had autism spectrum disorder or they had some sort of neurodivergency. And I was like, oh, wow. After some of the sessions, I'm like, oh my goodness, these stories, all of these symptoms, the things that they're working with are so relatable. Why is it that I intuitively know how to assist them and help them to connect to their spirituality? Okay. This went on for many months until I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check out some videos on YouTube and I'm gonna do some research for myself. And I took one of the tests, standardized tests that psychologists and therapists use. One of the ones that are available out there online. I don't know what the name is, but I'll probably fill it in later or show you a little clip. And I took the test probably like 15 times. And every single time, it's like, more than likely you have autism spectrum disorder. After taking those tests, I'm like, damn, started looking at my life really, and I was living alone because I had left the sober house. I got my own apartment. It was great. It was a 2-bedroom apartment. I was singing and I was dancing around. I was serving clients. It was a whole free-for-all that I loved. And during this period of time, I really got to know myself. I got to know myself on a more intimate level. And it was the first time in my life that I was, number one, working for myself full time, and I didn't have an identity that was attached to my work. Meaning, prior I had worked as a bartender for many years in a very loud bar. I was only able to do this because I was smoking a shit ton of weed at the time. I don't know how YouTube is with cuss words, so I'm gonna just edit it out or do something. So I had understood like that I had a bunch of different situational friendships, and I would get my heart broken over and over again because after I would leave the job, I'd be like, why aren't we friends? Why aren't we relating? And it would just fizzle out. So I got to know myself much more intimately. And I started following some other content creators who are also autistic. And my journey was like, I had already had the background of self-inquiry through my meditation, through my mindfulness practices and my spiritual journey. And it became very clear to me that I started to understand why I also felt othered and felt alien even in these spiritual spaces. Now, I'm also a trans man.
My name is Jordan. I am currently a female, but identify as male.
I also figured this out by the art of deduction. Okay, I'm like, was it because I was trans? Was it because I was this, that? Why did I feel this way? And so a lot of these experiences and sitting with myself for a year, going back and forth, what does this mean? Oh my gosh, getting really, really upset and looking at my history of high school when I would just elope and run out of the building, and it was just seen as like I was seen as an angry black girl, or I guess during that time period, and I graduated high school in 2006. Things were largely different then. I looked at how many systems failed me. I looked at how I actually prefer not to speak before 11 a.m. when sometimes I prefer not to speak at all. I always daydreamed about learning sign language so that I didn't have to go through certain ways of communicating. I always felt alien in so many different community settings where I'm like, all right, these trans people are my people. All right, these people of color are my people. All right, these spiritual people are my people. And every single time I'm just like, what's going on? Why do I still feel so like I'm drowning? And trying to fit in and just basically just understand myself. And so I went through all of these thoughts and reminiscing and being like light bulb moments for a year. One really funny thing that I will share is that I went around saying for many, many years that I was the Rain Man. I'm like the Rain Man. Do you know who the Rain Man is, y'all? Okay, The Rain Man is a movie, I think with Dustin Hoffman, about an autistic individual. And you know what? I was just relating to the fact that the Rain Man had really great memory, not the fact that the Rain Man was autistic. And, well, that's a large part of the story. So I'm like, okay, I've been literally saying that I'm the Rain Man for years. Okay, this is a little bit late understanding, but whatever, we're here. So basically I had self-diagnosed, and then what happened and why I decided to ultimately get diagnosed is because I was having this experience of being in between, actually accepting that I have autism and not. And what an actual diagnosis gave me was like that mental clarity of, without a shadow of a doubt, this is how you are. And when I self-diagnosed, I was sort of like gaslighting myself back and forth, invalidating and then validating, invalidating and validating and invalidating, validating, back and forth, okay? And it was daunting at first looking for a therapist who, number one, getting diagnosed as an adult, like I was 34. Oh, wow. That was so challenging. And working for myself, the first quote that I looked at online was like $5,000. I'm like, yeah, right, no way. Okay, let me look at alternative routes. Okay, at that point, I knew that it was possible that my insurance would cover it. I didn't have any special insurance, by the way, but I knew that it was like an extensive and exhaustive process where I kind of like, the way that my autism shows up is like, if there is an extensive process where I have to do a lot of paperwork or bureaucracy, I'm like, nope, not doing that. I would rather rip out my eyeballs than do that. So I figured, okay, let me just get creative and see how other people have done it, reach out to community. And I reached out to this creator who also was a person of color who had autism. And I asked them, I'm like, do you have any resources? And they were just like, oh, follow this person. They really didn't even answer my question. I'm like, okay, I don't know why they told me to follow this person, but I'm going to do it. And this person happened to post something from another person who happened to be a psychologist. This psychologist was offering autism diagnosis assessments for a very, 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 very discounted price, okay? And I was like, this is it. I'm going to do it. I invested the money and I met with this person through a process which was also kind of exhausting. And to be honest, a little traumatic, but well worth it. And then I actually got my diagnosis on my way to Montana. Okay, backstory. I'm from Long Island. I'm also Sagittarius and I've traveled all over the world, lived out of a backpack for 4 years, which isn't your typical autistic journey or story, but travel is one of my special interests. And so I had decided to move to Montana. All right. Literally, I'm driving to Montana, about to arrive. I pull over, of course, check my email because I was anticipating the results. And lo and behold, I got my results. I knew. And, you know, on my way to Montana, it seemed like a really romantic idea to go to Montana in the winter and begin writing my memoir and be around the snow in this beautiful freshwater lake. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'd only been there in the summer a few times. And what had happened was like probably the deepest depression that I've ever been through in my entire life. That's what happened when I got there. And I was like, okay, I reached out to the person who diagnosed me. They were so busy, they couldn't really give me any added support, which, by the way, getting support after you get diagnosed, like, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, balloons were gonna fall from the sky. I was gonna find like the quintessential puzzle piece and like put it into my huge puzzle, and it's like boom, everything was going to be great afterwards. What had happened is like I went through a huge period of grief, which was necessary, and I isolated myself because when I came out to some of my close friends, they did not give me the response that was affirming or helpful. And, you know, I told my family that I was diagnosed, and still to this day, they really haven't tried to have a conversation with me. So, I mean, it's a genetic thing. I'm not going to say that they do or they don't have autism, but, you know. Yeah. So it was a whole dramatic thing that happened. I wind up moving back after 6 months. Was it 6 months? Less than 6 months. Put all my stuff in my vehicle once again and drove across the country and, what is that movie? Run Home, Jack. Jack. So I ran home, Jack, because I was like, I can't stay here. I started to feel unsafe. There was no community. There was probably like crickets, insert maybe one person of color that I had seen in the first 3 months that I was there, and I was like, this isn't the life for me right now. I'm still a young man. I'm 35. I turned 35 at the time, and I was like, gotta get out of here. Gotta leave. So I left and I went back to Long Island. And I began to do some more research into coming to understanding as to why I felt so just let down by the powers that be within the United States system of schooling, healthcare, my parents, my community, etc., etc. And there are specific reasons. Now, this is overgeneralized. Also want to just put a disclaimer here. I am not a mental health professional. I'm not an expert, but I am an expert at my experience, so this is why I'm sharing this with you. My experience, all right? I came to understand that systematically, people who are assigned female at birth, AFAB, are not so likely to get diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Why? Because societally we expect for women to be shy and to act certain ways that also fall under the categories of, I will say, symptoms of being autistic. Now, you have that. Plus, let's sandwich together the fact that you are assigned female at birth and that you're a Black woman. There you have this whole stereotype that, Black women don't feel pain, et cetera, et cetera. So I slipped through the cracks, long story short, and I came to understand, for myself, that this was another aspect of my identity journey, that there was little framework of people who had come before me who could advise me. Simply because of the environment in which I find myself in and the identities that I have. The same thing with transgender. My trans journey. I transitioned in 2000. Time is interesting. 2013. And at that time, there was only a handful of people, and the internet was still just it was slowly interneting. It's not the beast that it is today. So the access was definitely YouTube stories and channels that I started to follow, and one of my good friends happened to be trans and transitioning. And so, yeah, there was little framework for me to understand myself. And this is also why I'm sharing my story, is because I still feel strongly that even today there aren't so many, let's say, diagnosed transistic. Whoa, I just came up with a new word. Autistic trans individuals that are sharing in this way. And so autistic and Black and trans and psychic and all these things, it's little. However, basically a lot of my human experiences and my feelings that I have experienced are very relatable. So it's whereas my identities make me different, right? My story, my journey has been quite unique, but my feelings aren't really that unique in the grand scheme of human emotions and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I just want to engage. Now is the time where I'm engaging. What do you think, Black and autistic, what do you think about that? How systematically there might not be as many resources, and being adults, it's not impossible, okay? But it can happen, and it can happen to you. Subscribe, comment, share. I'm going to be talking about more things on this channel. So give it a whirl. Subscribe down there. Or up. I think it's down. But anyway, Crow signing off. Peace.